So tonight at 9:30 PM GMT, more than likely 9 PM because it depends on how long it takes me to record tomorrow's video later on this evening, I will be streaming Euro Truck Simulator over on the Omegon Plays channel and also over on Twitch. Please consider subscribing to the YouTube channel and or following and or subscribing on Twitch. I'd appreciate it. Link to all of that below. Now yesterday I mentioned I had enough information to make another video on Shamima Begum. I'm not going to do a full video on this because I don't see the point. Instead we're going to do a minor update and then focus on something else because seriously, why would I do that? The first thing is that she has finally, I wish I could say it like The Rock, finally admitted absolute regret for what she has done. She is so desperate she has finally conceded defeat. In her first interview since she lost her son Gerard, this is. It is quite surprising just how desperate one gets when they lose everything and have nothing going on for them in their lovely happy life in their tent while watching cartoons. Which brings us on to our second little bit of an update, because we have to now know that Shamima doesn't care about Brexit, because cartoons are more interesting. I tend to agree, by the way, that cartoons are more interesting than Brexit, and why this was newsworthy of an entire article, I don't know. So now we're going to move on because this is just cancer. We are, instead of talking about Shamima Begum for 10 minutes, going to talk about academia in a rather interesting set of scandals that have occurred in the United States and the UK. Because in the US there was a cheating scandal that has kind of hit the US recently, but it had been going on for a long time. And now one has been finally outed in the UK, which also hadn't been going on for quite some time anyway. It was known, I knew it when I was a student, that if I wanted, I could have just paid an SA Mill, which is the name of the type of company it is, to write a thesis for me. The only issue there is when it comes down to me meeting my personal tutor, or going to seminars, if I didn't understand what it was that I was doing, it would have been noticed. So there is a certain air of, it does depend on the subject matter. But finally in the UK it has been noticed that there are companies that will write PhD theses, not theses, it depends on of course if it's a humanities degree or a science, and your opinion on either a humanities degree and or a science degree, for between £2,500 and just over £6,000, which actually isn't as expensive as you'd expect. Considering how much it costs to make a PhD or to get a PhD, actually that's quite reasonable. This means that there are some students who have cheated their way to PhDs by paying companies to write dissertations for them. And this was finally busted after a reporter posed as a student, where they were told all you need to do is just write your name on the top. I would argue, by the way, when it comes to kind of like a debriefing in some subjects, you have to explain what you've done, why you've done it. Simply writing a paper isn't enough for some people. Some committees will grill, and if they didn't before, they most certainly will now. And I would argue, a number of people, I'm sure some will be suspicious of their credentials in the first place, will then go out of their way to properly investigate more recent PhD recipients. Of course, once they're able to ascertain when some of these companies started working, they would then be able to go back further, and by doing this, properly investigate all people who received a PhD, because it is important. Let's not forget here, some people who get PhDs go in other directions, for example MD, so this really does need to be dealt with. But I would argue also on that, it would be impossible to get an MD with a fake PhD. Because of how doctors' training goes about, it would not be possible. So perhaps we can remove that one from the equation, maybe. When it comes to certain humanities like law, perhaps, it would be quite easy to trace them because they would be the people who are pro bono solicitors doing PPI, because they're successful, and they're not at all cold callers at best. We could break down each subject in turn and try and work it out. But chances are if you've got a PhD, you're involved in academia in some way. So all one has to do is look at your record as well and see what you've been doing, because a lot of people who get PhDs go into research anyway. And if they don't actually produce anything of note or worthwhile, one can certainly curiously investigate whether that person's PhD is legitimate. Of course, these essay mills may well keep records, which would negate the whole thing entirely, really, wouldn't it? Now, salesman for King's Academic Help has said, "We will write the complete dissertation from scratch. Once you receive the work, all you have to do is write your name and submit it to your mentor, like a good little assassin, and cheat. I want to now state for those who have managed to get the funding to do a PhD, and then summarily cheat, you are a national disgrace. You have deprived someone else who would have put the work in of getting their PhD because you wanted to take a shortcut. Now, I won't deny the majority of people will take a shortcut if they can, because a shortcut is, of course, a shortcut and easier. However, something like a PhD isn't easy. If you truly want it, you have to earn it, because then you can understand the hard work others have put in to get to where they are, to be who they are. You may want to aspire to be someone like a professor you look up to, but no, they didn't cheat to get where they are. Unless, of course, they did, in which case, congratulations, you've basically mimicked your mentor. In addition to the comments about writing your name at the top, he also added that if your mentor needs some changes on it, we will do that for you until they're completely satisfied. My writer will be working on your dissertation according to your level of education, as well as the standard of work that you are looking for from us. So it's impossible that your instructor will find out that someone else has written your work. This actually raises one question and answers another. The question being, how do you ascertain their level of education? And, well, it answers the question of that as well, kind of, because they're going to assess it. That's interesting. But then how do we know that level of education is good enough to get a PhD in the first place if you've gone so far as to cheat? I would argue, if you've gone so far as to cheat, you're either incredibly lazy and gifted, incredibly lazy and struggle, or you just struggle and are desperate for reasons that I'm sure are totally unique and not at all basically every person that's desperate. The consultant has claimed that roughly 70 to 75 staff work at the Mayfair office for King's academic help, but the address was found to be a virtual mail service, and the company has also claimed to sell essays to more than 12,000 British students a year, claiming that around 50 of its PhD candidates are from Oxford and Cambridge, something the university has obviously denied, but to me, since I went to UEA, would make a lot of sense, because you've got to be at the top, yo. And even though your colleges are both shit, UEA is better, by the way. Get fucked. You still rank above us, even though we do better than you? Grow the fuck up. The only reason you're there is because of your poxy little rowing contest, which is just embarrassing. A consultant for the British dissertation editors has said the dissertation costed between 2.8k and 3.9, depending on whether the customers wanted a 2.2 or a 2.1 or a first, even though those grades aren't for PhDs. That, I assume, is for degree level, with that person boasting that the firm is the largest in the industry with more than 100 academics on the payroll, and that person had no hesitation in agreeing to deliver a doctoral thesis in Shakespeare's Hamlet and Lacanian post-mortem psychoanalysis, which is amazing. I find it fascinating these experts have gotten together, and they've managed to decide this is a good way to make money by delegitimizing academia as a whole. This bugs me beyond reckoning, by the way. I know how much effort I put into what I did, and I know how hard it is. Many of you viewers know how hard it is. So to know these people are doing this is disgusting, and I do hope all those that cheated lose their credentials. I know somebody that once lied about their teaching licenses because their husband printed them off for them. They did go to university, but they didn't have the teaching licenses, and after 10 years working at a school, they were accidentally outed. And I was totally on board with that, because you cannot have people that aren't supposed to be there doing a job they are not meant to be doing because they haven't got the correct credentials. This is very important. We must uphold a certain standard, and one must always seek to remove those who do not meet the criteria for reasons that include cheating. Hopefully, there'll be a lengthy investigation, and any of the students that paid for it, yeah, you're not going to get a refund, but you're also not going to get your degree, your PhD, your degree, your masters, hell, your A-levels if that's what you managed to somehow get, which you couldn't get because they involve examinations. I don't care. As long as they are removed from you, and you lose your jobs, I don't care. Because there must be a level of intellectual honesty and integrity that is maintained, and cheaters should not know that they can succeed. Also, you would have denied someone who earned the right to be there from having that job or that success or that career, so you should definitely lose it as well. Anyway, I hope you all have a lovely Thursday, and if I don't see you over on Omegon Plays or on Twitch, thank you all for listening.